everybody. Welcome to our latest edition of Science Bytes. I am Miss Nicole with Bloomfield Public Library, and today we are going to do a project that I like to call fluorescent flowers. We are going to use the fluorescent ink from a highlighter pen and a little mini black light, and it is going to allow us to see the pathways that water takes as it moves through a flower or a plant. We have just a few simple supplies. When you visit us at the atrium, I will give you your highlighter pen and your little mini black light, and those will be yours to keep, and they will help you with your project. One of the most important ingredients is one that you will need to supply, and that is a flower. And I find that white flowers work best, and you want to try and choose a flower that has a somewhat broad leaf, something that'll make it easy for you to see some patterns and pathways in. And the two flowers that I found that are very easy to find in the stores, I just went to a supermarket and was able to buy them, were daisies. Daisies are a nice flower. You can see they've got a nice broad leaf. And also another one that's a terrific one to use, and I wasn't sure it would be, but it was a really nice one, is a tulip. And tulips have, you can see a nice, you're going to be able to see some nice pathways there on that tulip petal. So before we get started though, I want to talk to you a little bit about how we need to prepare the flowers. This is actually the most important step. One of the most important things about this project is how you prepare the flowers. And this is something that you really should be doing with any cut flowers you bring home. When you buy flowers for mom or somebody gives you flowers, this is an important step for you to do to make sure that those flowers have a nice long life. Anytime you bring home cut flowers like this, the first thing you want to do is to trim the bottom of the stem at an angle. And the reason you do that is because you want to make sure that that cut flower is going to be able to absorb the water and the nutrients that you're providing for it. If it's been cut from a while ago, it may actually have a little bit of a film or a seal that comes over the cut end, and that's going to stop it from getting as much water and nutrients as it should. But you don't want to just cut it out on the countertop or on your table, because what can happen is if you cut it out in the air like this, if I just snipped the end right now, there might be some air bubbles or air pockets that get into the end of the stem. And that will also prevent the water and nutrients from getting up to the flower. The best thing to do is to always trim and cut your flowers underneath water and then move them directly to a vase or a glass with water in it. So I do have prepared a small glass here with just a little bit of water. We don't need a lot of water for our project. In fact, it's better if we don't use a lot of water because we want to concentrate the fluorescent ink from that highlighter as much as possible. So I put just enough water so that the end of that flower is going to sit nicely in that water and is definitely not going to pop out and get into the air, but not too much. I want to really concentrate that highlighter ink. And now I'm going to show you how I'm going to prepare the flowers that are going to go into this glass. So here is my daisy that I just showed you in our previous clip. And I want to cut this end. I want this to fit better into my glass. I don't want it to stand quite so tall. So what I'm going to do is actually put it into the water, and this may take a couple of cuts. I may not be able to do it in one cut, but with the part that's under the water, I'm now going to snip the end, just like that. And I'm going to keep doing that under the water until I get it to the height that I like. I think I'm going to do one more snip. There we go. And now I am going to move it directly from underneath the water into my glass that has the little bit of water in it, like that. And that is how you prepare your flowers and make sure that they are going to absorb the water that you want them to. Now for this next step, we're going to add the fluorescent ink to the water. And that's going to help us to see it under the UV light. So I have here a pair of what are called needle nose pliers. They're good at grabbing things. You might also have tweezers at home that might work fine if you don't have something like needle nose pliers. And that's great too. What we're going to do is take our highlighter pen and pop off the cap. And you see, here's our tip that's got the highlighter ink in it. And we are just going to tug that out with our needle nose pliers. It doesn't take too much effort, but you do want a good grip on it. So I'm going to just grip it and tug. And there it is. And now I'm going to drop it into my water. And you might use this end of the highlighter to just give it a little bit of a tiny stir. You can already see that some of that water is turning fluorescent yellow. Now you are going to want to let this soak for about 1 to 2 days before you test it with the UV light. But you can do it before as well and sort of see the progress as you let it sit longer and longer. Now you don't need to remove the highlighter tip from the water. I don't know if you can see it, but yep, you can see I've still got it in the vase or in my glass with my flower that we just prepared, and I'm just going to leave it in there. It's not going to do any damage to the plant, and the fluorescent ink won't do any damage to the plant either. This is just a way for us to track the path of the water in the flower. Doctors sometimes do this when they do some of their scans, if they're trying to track what your brain might be doing or what your heart might be doing. They sometimes inject dye into our bodies to track the pathway through our bodies with special machines so that they can see if it gets stopped somewhere, if it's not flowing the way it should. So it's something that doesn't hurt, but actually gives us a really good view of what's happening. Now, I tried to take some images of looking at the plants with the UV light in the dark, and you'll see these off to the side. It was a little tricky because my camera kept wanting to not focus since it was so dark. But you get sort of an idea of what you're looking at. And I will also see if I can show you a little bit, even though we're in the daylight, you might be able to see some. This is some daisies that I have been soaking for, I think, a little over 2 days now. It might be 2 days, a little over 2 days. Let me see, I found a really good petal. This little droopy petal right here actually showed it really well. So I'm gonna see if it, now this is my little UV black light. Just has an on switch right here on the front that you would just push on. And these are the ones I'm providing at the library. So I'm now pushing it on. You can kind of see, you can see that it's on. Now let me see if I point it at this petal. Let me see if we can see, even though it's light out. Maybe you can see it a little bit. It's a little too bright, but you might be able to see on the tips of some of the petals. There you go. It's a little tricky to see in the daylight, but you can see on my end, I can see where there are some really bright points on the petals, and that's where I know especially the flower is getting lots of water. Let me see if you can sort of see it a little on the petals, on the leaves too. There's some bright spots, and those are where the water is concentrated. Now you at home are going to be able to see this really well, especially if you darken the room and you give yourself some dark. But let me explain to you real quickly why this is working. Like, what is a UV light? What is a black light? It's sometimes referred to as a black light. It looks sort of purplish, and they even colored these purple because sometimes it's a purple light. And what's happening is UV light is not something we normally see with our eyes. We feel it though in our bodies. The sun sends down UV rays. We sometimes get a sunburn, but it's from rays that we don't see with our natural eyes. But the UV light can be felt. And what's happening with our fluorescent pen is the fluorescents in our highlighter are actually absorbing this UV light and then reflecting it in a visible way for our eyes. So that's why we're able to see these bright spots and these purple pathways in the flowers when we let them absorb some of that highlighter filled water. We are able to then track some of it with this UV light. Now, like I told you, I tried my experiment with both daisies and with tulips, and it worked great with both. But I would recommend that you guys try it with a variety of different white flowers. White is going to be the easiest one for you to see those pathways in, but try different colored flowers. That might be a good experiment. This is the kind of thing that makes a great science project or a science fair project. You can try different color flowers. You might try all tulips, but make them different colored tulips and see which tulips show it best. You might try different color highlighters. There are all sorts of fluorescent highlighters out there. There's orange, there's, pink, there's green. Try different colors. When I did my research online, most people indicated that yellow was the best in terms of what you'd be able to see ultimately in the flower, but try and experiment with that. Come up with different variables, find ways to test it. This is a really simple project, but one that you can have a lot of fun with and get really into, get some really good information from. Now remember, I can provide you with both the highlighter pen and the little mini black light or UV light at the library. So come visit our atrium location. I'll be happy to give that to you. And you just need to provide the flowers and the water. And with Mother's Day right around the corner, you might be able to just snatch a flower out of Mom's bouquet and do something on the side if you want. Like I said, play with it. You can play with lots of different flowers. You can play with different highlighter pen colors. I only have the yellow one for you, but you might have some at home that you can play with. And I'll leave you with just this one last reminder. The most important step for the success of this project is cutting and trimming your flower stems underneath the water. I did do this project where I cut them just out in the open air. I just had them on the table. And I did not get nearly the same results. And I know that's because little air bubbles or air pockets were working their way into the stem, and the water and the highlighter ink dye was not making its way up into the flower the way it should have. If you cut those flower stems underwater and then immediately move them to a glass with water in it, you will be good and everything will come out beautifully. So until next time, everybody, see you later.